Welcome to Alchemist Tribune Deep Dives, hosted by the Academic Renegade. We're here to share insights and analysis from the latest articles in the Alchemist Tribune. Each week, we explore how doctorate holders are transforming academic expertise into entrepreneurial success. Let's dive in.
Today, we're examining an insightful piece about leveraging academic skills in the business world. It's fascinating how the same abilities we develop in academia can become powerful tools in entrepreneurial settings.
Absolutely. What struck me immediately about this article is its emphasis on critical thinking as a cornerstone skill. The academic rigour required for doctoral work cultivates a level of analytical thinking that's remarkably valuable in business contexts.
I couldn't agree more. The article frames critical thinking as more than just analytical ability. It's portrayed as a decision-making superpower. When you think about it, the methodical approach scholars take to evaluating evidence and questioning assumptions translates perfectly to business problem solving.
And what's particularly interesting is how the article connects critical thinking to creativity. There's this persistent myth that academic thinking is rigid or uncreative, but the opposite is often true. The ability to identify root causes rather than just treating symptoms, that's something academics excel at.
That's a crucial point. In my experience, academics are trained to dive beneath surface-level explanations. The article gives that example of high employee turnover, where a non-critical thinker might throw money at the problem with bonuses. The academic mindset asks deeper questions about work environment, advancement opportunities, and management practices.
Which brings us to another key section of the article, data-driven decision-making. The metaphor they use, data is the new oil, really resonates with me. Raw data needs refining to be valuable, just as academics learn to do through years of research.
That's where I think PhDs have a tremendous advantage in business settings. The sheer volume of data analysis required for dissertation work prepares you to sift through business data and extract meaningful insights. The article mentions that data-driven companies are 5 times more likely to make faster decisions. That's a significant competitive edge.
And those companies see a 15% increase in revenue when they leverage data analytics effectively. But what's fascinating is how the article connects this analytical skill set with communication abilities, because insights are only valuable if you can convey them effectively to others.
That's the bridge many academics struggle to cross initially. In academia, we're often communicating with peers who share our specialized knowledge. In business, you're frequently explaining complex concepts to diverse audiences with varying levels of expertise.
The article really emphasises this skill of simplifying complex concepts as an art form. I love the practical advice it offers. Know your audience, use analogies, and break down information into digestible parts. These are techniques many professors develop naturally through teaching.
And building rapport through communication is equally vital. The article points out that effective communication creates trust and openness, essential ingredients for successful negotiations and collaborations. Academic conference presentations and networking at scholarly events develop these exact same skills.
What about the section on adaptability? That resonated strongly with me because doctoral work is essentially a years-long exercise in adaptation and resilience. Your research evolves, your hypotheses get challenged, your experiments fail, and you adapt.
The statistic they mention, that adaptable leaders boost team morale by 30%, speaks volumes. In today's rapidly changing business landscape, the ability to pivot quickly is invaluable. And honestly, who pivots more often than researchers pursuing new knowledge?
I'm glad you brought that up. The article frames adaptability as a mindset rather than just a skill, a willingness to learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's the essence of academic inquiry, isn't it? Being comfortable with uncertainty and embracing new information, even when it challenges your existing views.
Absolutely. And that leads naturally to the ethical framework section. Academic training instills a deep respect for ethics, research ethics, citation practices, intellectual honesty. These values transfer directly to business leadership.
I found that section particularly compelling. The article argues that ethical leadership creates a ripple effect throughout organizations. When leaders prioritize ethics, it fosters trust and integrity at all levels. We've all seen what happens when businesses lack ethical foundations. The consequences can be devastating.
And the case examples they provide demonstrate how ethical dilemmas can be resolved through transparency and accountability. These are principles deeply embedded in academic culture.
What I appreciate about the article's overall approach is how it reframes academic skills as business assets. Too often, PhDs entering the business world feel they need to downplay their academic background, when in reality, they should be leveraging it as their secret weapon.
That's exactly right. Critical thinking, data analysis, communication skills, adaptability, and ethical frameworks. These aren't just academic exercises. They're practical tools for business success, and academics have spent years honing them.
The questions section at the end of the article provides an excellent framework for readers to reflect on their own transferable skills. For instance, how can research and analysis skills, honed in academia, provide a strategic advantage in business? That's a powerful prompt for self-reflection.
And the question about leveraging academic networks is particularly astute. Those connections formed through conferences, research collaborations, and alumni associations can open doors to business opportunities. Academics often underestimate the value of their professional networks.
I'm curious about your perspective on the data interpretation section. The article suggests that academics bring a unique ability to not just analyse data, but to tell stories with it. That narrative element seems increasingly important in business contexts.
You're touching on something critical there. In today's data-saturated environment, the ability to extract meaningful narratives from statistics is invaluable. Academics develop this skill through years of translating research findings into compelling arguments. In business, this means turning customer data into actionable insights or market trends into strategic direction.
There's also an interesting point about how academic leadership experiences, like mentoring students or overseeing research projects, translate to team building in business settings. Those who've supervised doctoral students know all about motivating individuals through challenging long-term projects.
That's a perfect example of hidden transferable skills. Managing research teams requires careful attention to diverse working styles, clear goal setting, and creating an environment where people feel comfortable sharing ideas. These are precisely the leadership qualities that foster innovation in business settings.
The article makes a compelling case that academics already possess the toolkit needed for business success. They simply need to recognise these skills and apply them in new contexts. It's less about learning entirely new abilities and more about translating existing ones.
And that translation process is exactly what the Alchemist Tribune excels at highlighting. The academic mindset, methodical, evidence-based, ethically grounded, has tremendous value in entrepreneurial settings. Doctorate holders bring a depth of analysis that can transform business challenges into growth opportunities.
What advice would you give to academics considering the leap into entrepreneurship based on this article?
I'd encourage them to conduct a thorough inventory of their transferable skills, perhaps using the article's key sections as a framework. Identify specific examples from their academic work that demonstrate critical thinking, data analysis, communication, adaptability, and ethical leadership. Then articulate how these translate to business contexts.
That's excellent advice. I'd add that finding mentors who've successfully made this transition can be invaluable. As the article suggests in its networking section, academic connections can provide guidance and open doors to unexpected opportunities.
I think we should also acknowledge that this transition isn't without challenges. The pace of business differs from academia, and there's often a learning curve around certain practical skills like marketing or financial management. But the foundational abilities discussed in this article provide a robust platform for acquiring those additional competencies.
Absolutely. It's about building on strengths rather than starting from scratch, and recognizing that the rigorous thinking developed through doctoral work is precisely what gives academic entrepreneurs their competitive edge.
This has been a fascinating discussion. The article really illuminates how academic training prepares individuals for business leadership in ways they might not immediately recognize. Critical thinking, data analysis, communication, adaptability, and ethical leadership, these are powerful tools for entrepreneurial success.
And they're precisely the skills we celebrate here at the Alchemist Tribune. The bridge between academia and enterprise isn't as long as many might think. It's about recognizing the value of your academic toolkit in new contexts.
Thanks for joining us on Alchemist Tribune Deep Dives. We're the academic renegade crew, reminding you that your doctorate is more than a degree. It's your launchpad to entrepreneurial success. For more insights, visit us at the Alchemist Tribune, where we're bridging the gap between academia and enterprise. Until next time, keep innovating.